Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Women's Fitness Academy podcast. I am one of your hosts, Elin, a binge and body image expert, as well as a co-host and educator for Women's Fitness Academy. Today, I'm here with someone who, I feel like this podcast kind of goes full circle because I have worked with this person and then I met this person in Bali and then I did a workshop for this person and now she's on the podcast. So, yeah. Emily King, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. If you guys don't, I'm sure most people will already know who you are, but correct me if I'm wrong here, WBFF Pro, right?
Mm-hmm.
Personal trainer, online fitness coach, female coach. And I've heard that you recently also changed your fitness category. Is that right?
Yeah, so I've changed from WBFF to IFBB. So I won't I'll no longer be a pro in that WBFF, but hopefully one day I'll be pro in IFBB. But yeah, change divisions and change categories and change federations altogether. And I'm also a mum and a registered nurse as well. So 2 extra things there.
Jesus, you have a long resume. I love that. I think that's so cool. And it's amazing that you can do so many different things. And also love that you have, gone on this new journey now to go from being a pro at something to now, I wouldn't say complete beginner, but still like something new for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it is a huge jump, I guess. And a lot of people never make that change because they're like, I'm at the top of something, or even it goes I'm at the top of my career. Like, what if I start a new career? I'll be at the bottom. But you come with experience. So although it's scary starting in a new federation again, it's also really exciting to be they don't know me here. I'm coming in and I'm fresh and I'm new and I come with different style to maybe the other athletes, so it'll be really cool.
Yeah, definitely. So you obviously been with WBFF for a while, a long time now. What was the reason for you to switch federations then?
Wow, so many reasons. I in Australia, I absolutely love the WBFF and what it represents. And it is where I really got a lot of notice as a coach, as an athlete. It really helped me create more brand awareness for myself. So I have to give them that they really helped me, especially because I started with them in 2017 and I essentially did year after year. And then I think I had a year off and then I went overseas and I competed. And what I have found is just over the last couple of years, and this is just my opinion, that it's gone from bodybuilding and fitness to more of a fashion kind of vibe. And if anyone knows me, I am a bodybuilder through and through, and that's what I love doing. I love training and I love getting really lean and I love the challenge of a comp prep. And the last experience overseas was more they were kind of saying it was more fashion and it was more beauty and more modeling. And I was that's just not me anymore. I don't want to have to invest all this money into theme wear and all of this stuff that isn't bodybuilding. And so it essentially kind of really pushed my hand competing. So, and then plus IFBB is where I've always really wanted to end up. It is growing up in this space, I always aspired to be Dana Lynn Bailey. I'm not sure if you know her, but Nicole Wilkinson's, all these IFBB pros. And it has always been the Arnolds or the Olympia, imagine being up on that stage. So it felt really natural for me to go from, okay, and now I feel this isn't the space for me. And I don't feel I just personally, I didn't feel it really aligned with who I was. I'm not a overly glammy person. You'll very rarely see me with makeup on or hair extensions or any of that type of stuff. And that's what WBFF began for me. It was more about the look and all of these extra stuff that wasn't bodybuilding. So it feels more organic to me and it feels more genuine to me being in the space where it's just bodybuilding and you go up, you pay your registration, you get up on stage and you get off, and there's no registration days and all this other stuff that It took up a lot of space, so yeah, it just feels like the right thing for me. And integrity was like my word of the year this year, and it was just working in alignment with what I really felt I wanted to do and what I believed in terms of institutions and companies and things like that. So it just felt really good.
Yeah, wow, that is quite a lot of reasons, but I think that's amazing though, because like it just shows that it's not for everyone. And like sometimes I think that, this new, because it is quite new, and like when it came to Australia, it's kind of like this is what everyone has to do now. Like I feel like most people that you follow, they're like, I want to compete in the WBFF. So it's just interesting to see how people can go there. And then I know like quite a few people who have made the same decisions as you, go to the IFBB now, and like, because that's like an older federation, isn't it?
Yeah, it has been around for a lot longer than WBFF, yeah.
And yeah, like obviously I don't know anything about like bodybuilding shows and stuff like that, but from an outsider looking at it, it definitely, I can see the difference. Like IFBB feels more like a sport kind of, like it's, and WBFF is more like, if I feel like I'm watching the Victoria's Secret, but the people are more shredded, which is cool, but
it's honestly like just different people will gravitate to each federation, and that's completely fine. It really depends on what they're looking for and like what they really want to be. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more people, like especially in bikini and things like that, like that are going to WBFF because you don't have to diet as hard or get as lean. You can stay quite full and shapely and things like that. But I love the extremes of IFBB, and although I took those extremes in WBFF, like there's a lot of people do WBFF because it is that mixture between fashion and beauty and bodybuilding and things like that.
Yeah, I guess it just depends really on what you're after. But you said that you like to take things like to an extreme. Like, have you always been in that kind of mindset, like kind of more like go hard, go home kind of mindset?
I'm definitely like, I can, in my early 20s, like when I first started bodybuilding, I started off in ICN, so that's a natural federation, and I did 8 shows there, and I think what I loved about competing is that like it can take you to like really dark places, and you really find out what you're made of and who you are and why you're doing something like during it. For me, and I think I've always been the person, like when I commit to something, I am 100% in. Like if I choose to do something, like I'm there, I'm done, I'm doing it. And then like as I've become older, like maybe in my 30s now, like I don't take the risks that I probably would have like in my 20s. I'm so much more like conservative about my dieting approaches and about PED use, or and just in general training and things like that. So I have so much more of a health focus than I ever have. So that's obviously a good thing, because if I continued to have like that all or nothing, like really risk taking kind of behavior, I would probably not be in this sport as long as I am now.
For sure. Do you feel like that mindset has kind of changed since you became a mom?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. Because it's like, I want to be the best person for her. And if I'm like taking dieting to the extreme, which as like a lot of people know, like when you are on super low calories, or, you're doing really quick, fast dieting efforts or whatever, it really takes it out of you in terms of energy and mood and life in general. So like, the way that I approach a lot of things has changed in terms of like how I approach it since having Luna. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine having like a baby would change a lot of things for you. You've done one show, right, since becoming a mum?
Yes.
God, how did you manage like mum life, like newborn baby, going on stage, traveling?
She was like 9 months. No, sorry. She was 11 months when I got up on stage. So she was nearly a year old, I do believe. Just a year, sorry. Yeah.
Holy crap, that is insane.
Yeah, so I started dieting when I was 8 months postpartum. And look, for me, like, it sounds really rushed in terms of like you just started dieting when you're 8 months. But like I think people have to realize that like I've been doing this for like 12 years, so I took off a good 6 7 months off dieting in general. So I had really high calories. I I went through a period of not tracking there where that felt really good for me. So I was able to practice the skills of intuitive eating or informed eating. And then I went to tracking, and then I was in a good spot to start a prep. I wasn't actually going to prep that year. It's just because I did like an 8-week challenge with my clients, and I was like, hey, I still got this. I got the discipline. Like, I look really good. I realized I didn't lose as much muscle as I thought I had. Like, going through pregnancy and postpartum, I think a lot of women go, I'm going to lose so much muscle. But, you know, if you do stay active, you do train, you do eat enough calories, like it's really hard to lose muscle. I couldn't think people realize it. So like, I got to that point and I was like, I'm good to go. And I heard that like Asha, who's like my main competitor in WBFF, she was competing at World. So I was like, I'm in. I'm
Go get her.
Okay. So like that was really the reasoning behind that. But like in terms of like how we managed it, like I do have Matt, who he's my partner. So he wasn't dieting or doing anything at the time. He's just in a building phase. So he was really holding it down for me coming out of this, because if for me this the last prep was the most challenging of all of them, because I was trying to juggle this new life of being a mum and having a business and growing the business and being in the business and having clients and then prepping as well. So it was all just a new kind of land for me. And I think anyone that has children in the first like year, you're constantly trying to juggle and find your feet with it. So it was really hard for me to like focus on one thing, but like I did it. I ticked all the boxes. I did it to the best of my ability. In hindsight, like there's things that I could have done better, but like we all learn this as we go along. So, you know, I think I did really well. But definitely coming into the second time when I do start my dieting phase at the end of this year, I will be able to manage it a lot better. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you learn from your mistakes all the time. Well, not even mistakes, you just learn from your experiences. And like, how else were you ever meant to grow? How else would you ever meant to know? I think people they get so stuck in like their routines, or like even like federations, or like where they live or who they hang out with, because that's familiar, and that's, you know, our subconscious wants to keep us doing the same stuff all the time because that's what's safe.
Yeah.
So pushing yourself and doing things like this, I think it's so amazing to see. And I love people changing their lives up and doing different things. I think it's so cool. And like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You can always go back. Like, you can always go back to WBFF, or you can always go back to like live in the, I don't know, wherever, like Bondi or Bali, or places. Like, things stay. Like, it's not the end of the world if you try something new.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that.
So I think that a lot of people who go through like bodybuilding stuff or competitions, or even just like diets in general, I think, and then like you might get really lean for a photo shoot or for a diet or for a comp or whatever it is, and then like I know I went through this as well when I did one show like a million years ago, and like putting on the weight after, like, is that something like, it's obviously like when you are on stage you're so freaking lean. Obviously, that's not healthy to stay like that all year round. But how do you deal with like the post-comp kind of cravings, like wanting to eat and like obviously gaining back and being healthy again? Has that ever been a problem for you?
100%. Like I've done, like, this would have been my, I think, 14th show or something like this. Like I did 8 shows with IFCN, and then I did 4 or so with one with NABA, and then a couple of more with WBFF. So like I've done this so many times, and I've tried every approach under the sun that you can think about in terms of dieting or the post-comp, or, you know, everything that you can think of. So like earlier on in the piece, I really struggled with post-show. Like after every show, like I would go from dieting on like low calories, or not even knowing what calories. I would usually just have like a meal plan. This was prior to like the macros situation being really popular, where everyone just had a meal plan and we followed it. So I would be going from that to just eating like normal, which was not normal at all. It was like in excess, and it was like just really low nutrient dense foods and really high like calories and like pizzas and chocolates and all that kind of stuff, because I was like, I've restricted myself for such a long time, and I get to have this and I deserve to have this. And that was like the mindset. And I had no balance between like what was a healthy lifestyle. Like I just had no grip on that whatsoever, because I was either fluctuating between dieting and this normal life, which wasn't normal at all. So It took a really long time to, I think it was like 2016, 2017, to really like grasp onto the fact that like what I was doing was really unhealthy in terms of the rebounding, and I would gain anywhere from like 10 to 15 kilos in a short period of time. So like a month or two. And I
Wow.
was totally different. I would be so puffy in my face, my skin, my hair, everything was just awful. So
Yeah.
it took a really long time to come out of that and realize that like I needed to create a lifestyle out of what I was doing in terms of eating well and being really happy in that space. And this is essentially, I started with Mark Carroll. I'm sure you know him, but and he was really the one to be like, what are you doing? Like you're restricting yourself, and then you're just overeating. Because I was under the impression that I thought that if I ate 1,700 calories, I would gain weight. Like that was my thought process.
Oh my gosh.
I
Did
was
you
like,
have a
I
coach
can't.
before him, or was it just you?
I had like on and off kind of coaches, people that would help me with the prep, and then
Okay.
I would see ya, and that was my fault. Like that was an issue that I would make, and I see so many people still making this problem. Like if you're
Mm.
going to be with a coach during the prep, stay with them to do the reverse phase. Like
Mm.
it is so silly and so like, and I'd had clients do that to me too, and I've been like, bro, like you need me here, and they're like, oh no, I'm good now, and I was like, you're not good.
Yeah. Yeah, you might be good now. Wait a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so like he was like the first one, Mark was the first one to be like, what are you doing? Like you need to reverse yourself out of where you are now, where your like metabolism's probably adapted quite low to
Mm.
constant dieting and not actually getting calories back up, and essentially overeating, going in cycles of overeating and restricting. And so I had to reverse diet from like my last comp. I think that was my first world's comp in 2017. And I reverse dieted up until like 2,500, which is a good amount for me at the time.
Mm.
And I was like, hey, I can be on higher calories and I can train well. I can like, and I was training so much less than I had been. I was overtraining at that point as well. I'd been doing like 7 sessions or 8 sessions a week. So that was double sessions plus cardio and all that kind of stuff. Because I thought more was always better. There's that like the all or nothing kind of mentality
Mm.
showing up there. So I stripped my sessions back to 4 a week. I was having 2,500 calories, and my body was just thriving. Like I was giving it what I needed. I was giving it the rest that I needed, and I was like, hey, I can do this. Like, but it took like just someone that I really respected and looked up to tell me like straight what the hell I was doing and I was doing wrong, and for me to trust him. And so then from that point onwards, I've had really good reverse diets because I've stuck with. So I had him as a coach for my first 2 comps, and then I have now a different coach. But like I will stick with them 365 days a year because it is so important to have someone to bounce that idea off, and then for them to give you feedback rather than going, hey, thanks for the prep, see you later. Like you need someone to guide you through that reverse phase because it can be really hard, especially if you're doing it for the first time. And don't expect it to ever go perfectly. Like it is sometimes going to go rough because essentially you've been restricting yourself for a very long time. So you do need to slowly increase calories up or be able to like just manage that with your coach to see what approach you're going to take. Because sometimes people react better from going straight back up to their new maintenance, and that may save them from this kind of overeating, undereating cycle. So it really is such a more of a mental thing than a physical thing, and being able to have someone that you respect and that you listen to during that time is really important.
Yeah, 100%. Like the amount of people that come to me who develop binge eating because they haven't worked with a coach after they've done a show or a bikini prep or summer shred or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the maintenance. That's the freaking hard part. Like dieting is easy, like losing weight, like sticking to a plan. Cool. What do you do when you don't have that goal that you want to lose this much weight every week? That's the hard part.
Yeah, it's like the life after dieting, and I think like what everyone needs to do is like be able to feel confident without tracking or without feeling like without following a meal plan and have those tools in your tool belt rather than just going. I have so many people come to me and they're like, I need a meal plan. I can't function without it. I was like, well, we need to start there because you should be able to function without one. Like we should know how to feed ourselves outside of tracking and meal plans and things like that, because this is your lifestyle thing. This isn't like, you know, it may work for you short term, but it's not going to work for you long term.
Yeah, 100%. And it's always like if you take it, like bring it back on them, like, okay, but what are you going to do? Like when you go on a holiday, like, what are you going to do if it's your best friend's birthday? Like, are you going to be the person who has like a whole cooler bag on the plane to take away, like, hey, wherever you're going to go? Like, like, some people might want to live like that, but most people don't. And then, it's going to be hard to get off your meal plan, or it's going to be hard to stop tracking, but like you need to kind of make those sacrifices and go through the hard shit to be able to have the freedom.
Yeah, because you want to feel like, I think regardless of what you're doing in terms of like nutrition, you want to feel empowered about that, and not be frightened about it, or not be frightened about not doing it. Because like there's nothing worse than like people going, oh, I don't know what to do when I go out to eat, and you're like, okay, well let's start there, because like that's really like, we're going to go out for dinner sometimes, or we're going to have breakfast out, and you want to feel like you want to walk away from that being like, I really enjoyed myself, not like, oh my god, I just went over my fats and I'm like, I don't know what to do with the rest of my day, I'm just going to eat chocolate. Like, it's blessing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And especially like when was the last time you went to a social event that didn't have food? Like, it's going to be everywhere. And if you don't feel secure around food, if you don't feel secure around drinks and like breakfast or dinners or parties or whatever it is, how are you actually expecting to live a healthy, balanced life if you're always following a plan or relying on an app or a coach telling you what to eat?
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a tool for everything, right? Like, and it probably sounds weird, like I do this as a job, like my career is bodybuilding, and like there's so many professional bodybuilders that don't know what to do outside of following a meal plan or tracking, and like I think it's just not a safe or like healthy place to be at all, because like I can go days without tracking, but I know, like, because from years of having the education or the tracking experience behind me, like I know kind of where I'm sitting in terms of calories and protein, and it's easy now, but it does take time. So like anyone listening to that they're like, this is me and I'm really stressed, like it just takes time and education to get to a point where you feel like good.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. It's not just going to happen overnight. Absolutely not. And I definitely agree. Like, tracking is a great tool, and it's so good for learning about foods and how much that you can eat, and like what is protein, like what is carbohydrates. Like, god, when I first started tracking, I remember I tracked butter, and I was like, is that fat? Like, I didn't know it.
What is this?
Yeah. I'm like, whoa, it has a lot of calories. I had no idea butter has calories. I was like,
Exactly.
So it definitely has like a purpose for sure, but it's like you say, it's not a long-term thing. It's not for everyone. Like, everyone is so different. You need to just find what works for you, and a coach that works for you as well. Like, every coach is going to be different, and that's perfect. Like, we're all meant to be different.
Yeah, exactly. And like, take us for like example, like you don't do a lot of tracking, you don't do any tracking with your clients, like you're more in eating practices, and I do like more tracking and kind of a mix between, but like it is worth like knowing what, like if you are looking into a coach, like what methods do they use? Is that something that is actually in alignment with what you want to be doing? Like, if you want to be eventually in a point where you're not tracking and you're not following the plan and stuff, like then maybe going to someone like me isn't really going to work, because that's the tools that I'm going to use to, help my clients achieve specific results. So it is really important to know like what that coach does and what their specialty is, like before committing to it. So I have had clients that like they come to me and then they're like, I don't want to track, and I was like, I don't know, like that's not my wheelhouse, like it's so fun to admit, like it, like we can do that, but I don't know how to, not that I don't know how to teach someone that, but like it's just not my specialty area, like informed of eating,
Yeah, and I think that's great. Like, that's what we all are. Like, we're all different, and we're all gonna have different clients, and that's absolutely perfect. Like, we shouldn't all have, like, imagine if we all taught exactly the same thing. Like, that'd be so boring.
That's boring. Exactly.
So with like, obviously after shows that you do get like your body changes and stuff, like how do you deal with those changes? Have you ever gone through a phase of feeling like you weren't good enough, like insecure in your body? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, definitely. So like early, again, like I think a lot of the like my self-confidence and my self-image and things like that was really reflective of like the trust within myself and not knowing what I was doing. And that was really reflective of how I was feeling, if that makes sense. Like I was, a lot of the times when I was feeling really like bad or down on myself was because I had no specific goals in mind in terms of what I was doing next. It was just kind of like a free for all, like, oh, I guess like maybe I need to build more muscle. But again, I didn't have a coach to be like, this is what we're doing. This is what the expectation is. This is what we're going to achieve. And this is the plan that we're going to do. And that would have made me feel more empowered about what I was doing, more empowered about my decisions around food and training. And therefore I would have felt better. But like, I was just like, oh, maybe I need to like grow some shoulders. Or then I was like, it's kind of push and pull between like, I want to be more social with my friends. And then I was like, why can't I? Like, so it was lack of goals or lack of like, you know, what I was doing in the foreseeable future that was causing a lot of that kind of angst within myself. So, but again, like I have always been like, okay, in high school, I was a very small person, like I'm short anyway, I'm tiny, but like I was very like petite. I had like a lot of like eating problems, disordered behaviors between food and things like that growing in high school and stuff. And I went to an all girls school. It's fantastic. So all the girls there were like, the ones that I looked up to essentially were like, you know, big boobies and like they were like pretty, had like long hair, and I was like the flat chested like dweeb. And like that's what drove a lot of my like eating stuff then, because I was like, I just want to be like them and skinny like them and stuff like that. So
yeah, you sort of fit in, really.
Yeah, I just wanted to fit. I just want to be one of those.
Yeah,
and it was like coming out of that and stuff. But yeah, like I have always been athletic and I've always gained muscle really quite easily. So when I started eating okay and I started training, like I put on a lot of size really quickly. It was just like how my body worked, right? So I had to kind of get used to the fact that from an early age, I was going to look different to the other girls. And I wasn't ever going to be this like stick thin girl, no matter how hard I tried, because God, I tried so hard to be like tiny and little, but that wasn't me. So like, it has been like a long thing coming to grips with that. And sometimes it does get me like, I'll see like a petite girl and I'll be like, oh God, like her arms look nice in that dress. Like, and then I'm like,
like a flex emoji on an iPhone.
how's it going? Like, I think accepting myself earlier on for that muscular girl that I was always going to be was something that I did. And I really like, I love that. So I always come back and forth to it though. Like I don't think you're ever going to be like, I love myself and I love everything about me. Like you're always kind of like, but as long as you're in like the more love place for a long period of time, that's what good. But like in terms of reverse dieting and the changes within my body, like I've done this so many times that like I have morphed myself in and out of shape, you know, like every year essentially for 10 years. So like I have now got to a space in the last probably 5 years, like that I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm trying to achieve. So therefore that weight gain that I'm experiencing is something that I have predicted and I know how it's going to feel, you know, like, but earlier on in the piece when I did gain weight, especially in off season, I was like, oh, I feel so uncomfortable. And like, but it was because of that lack of goals. Like as soon as I got really clear on what I was trying to achieve and the fact that I have to get bigger in order to progress in this sport, like now, like this off season that I've done now has probably been the most structured, and this is like on my 10th off season, right? So like it's taken time, but like I've felt really good during this phase of like being heavier. I'm probably 15 kilos above stage weight, maybe, like quite a lot. I was thinking my stage weight last time was like, I don't even know, 60 kilos, and I'm 10 kilos, so I'm 70 now, and my stage weight was 60. So like a lot of people really stressed about gaining weight in the off season, but at the end of the day, you cannot progress unless you are putting on weight, putting on muscle, being heavier. Like if your long-term goal is to compete and do well, you need to be at peace with the fact that you're going to need to get heavier. And that's just part of it. You know, like so many women, I get so many, and they're like, I just don't want to put on weight. And I was like, well, do you want to do well in this sport? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, it's just part and parcel with it. Like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like you can't stay lean and grow a booty. Like it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say would be the best advice that you would give to someone who is struggling, who has put on a bit of weight and who, you know, I don't know, maybe they want to do a show or maybe they just kind of gotten off stage and they're just normal now.
Yeah. I guess like it's understanding like what your long-term goal is. Like so many people, like I think we talked about this earlier, it's like so many people compete for the wrong reasons, and sometimes it's to be lean, to get attention, to have that hashtag on their, like, you know, their Instagram photos, whatever it may be. Like it needs to be something that is deeper than that. It needs to be because you are a competitive person, you love competing, you love training, you're at peace with your body, and you're at peace with dieting and food in general. Because people that are coming from that positive space do so much better, because there's no like ifs or buts. It's like they choose to do something and it's there for them. So like getting really clear on why you're doing something first is really important, especially with competing, because I think too many people are in this space where they shouldn't be, and it's causing a lot of issues for them long term in terms of like their body image, how they feel about themselves, their self-worth, their relationship with food, all these things, right? But like if you're in a space that maybe you've gained a bit too much weight in your off season, get a coach to really structure out what you're doing, where you should be and where you want to be. So then there's no like, maybe I should be here and maybe I should be here. It's like you feel really confident. Like in an off season, I get my girls to, they feel so confident about where they are. And that really drives like self-image and how they feel about themselves. Because they're like, hey, I'm feeling like, you know, strong this week. I'm feeling like maybe they're like 5 kilos up or 6 kilos up or whatever, but they're like, it's not even about how much they weigh. They're like, I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling energetic. I'm sleeping so good. And I'm like, fab, we're exactly where we need to be, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I feel jacked. And I was like, yes.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And I think that having like a purpose is so important, and like having like trying to train for something that is not just aesthetic. So like getting in the gym, getting really strong, or getting really fast at running, or, you know, having some different kind of purpose with your life, because that's at the end of the day, like we all just want to have a purpose on this earth. And I think that after doing a diet, even if you're not even competing, even if you're just losing weight, you know, your purpose has been to diet to get to a certain stage for so long. It's easy to feel lost. And then when the weight also comes on, it's like, oh, now I feel lost and like a failure.
Yeah. 100%. And that's the hardest thing. Like, I think like if I wasn't competing, and if I wasn't in a perpetual state of dieting and gaining weight and stuff like that for what I do, because I love it, I always have a purpose. But I always think about this as well, because there was a point like post Luna where I didn't really have a goal of like, I maybe thought to myself like I wasn't going to compete again because I felt so far behind, which was all in my head. But like I was like, I'm just gonna be fit and I'm gonna be healthy. And I think like I personally always need a purpose. Like you said, we all look for purpose in what we're doing, and I think it's really important. But like an underlying purpose should always just be to be like the fittest and the healthiest version of yourself, and just keep moving towards that, because like that's going to help us live longer. Like that's going to help us, you know, run around with our grandkids. That's also going to help us influence our circle to be fitter and healthier. And like, what greater purpose do we have than that, right? So, you know, a lot of people get really lost. I'm like, don't feel lost. Like every day is an opportunity to challenge yourself in some way, whether it's getting that little bit stronger in the gym, or, you know, eating a little bit more healthier, or like incorporating more balance into your life. Like that's purpose as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. And also, like, girls, remember, if you're listening to this, that your healthiest weight is probably not going to be your leanest weight. Like, it's very easy to get stuck in that mindset that the leaner I am, the healthier I am. And I was just talking to someone about this the other day, that I obviously live in Bali now. I'm back in Bondi for like 2 weeks, and I had like all of my old clothes, and I tried something on that I had when I was struggling with orthorexia. So I was really like obsessed with tracking and obsessed with training, and obviously it didn't fit me anymore, because now I'm actually healthy. Like I'm actually have a good balance in life now. And the immediate thought is like, oh my God, I need to lose weight. And you can have that thought, but it's what you need to do is just not spend as much time in there, and be able to come back to the present and see like, okay, no, well, back then I was sick, or back then I was prepping for a comp or a wedding or photo shoot or whatever. That was my purpose at the time. That was my priorities. Now my priorities has changed, and my body is also going to change, and that is perfect. That is so fine.
Yeah, 100%. And that's such a good point to bring up too. Like, I think a lot of people would look at like, especially what I do with competing, and be like, oh, but you look so like, not that I don't think I look healthy when I'm that lean. I think everyone would look at that and be like, oh, that's an extreme. But like,
yeah, those final weeks is a bit.
maybe like 6 weeks out,
Yeah,
they're like, oh, like you must feel really good. And I'm like, when you are that lean, especially where I have to get to compete or where I want to push myself to compete, no one pushes me there. I do it myself.
yeah,
But like, that's not healthy. It's not maintainable. I feel so much better actually now. And I was actually talking to a girlfriend, like, I'm the heaviest that I've been in my adult life. Like, and I would happily sit here for the rest of the time, like, because I'm strong, I sleep well, my hormones are in check, like, I'm good, you know, like, I don't need to be leaner, like, it's not like a thing for me. Like, if I wasn't competing, I would just sit here and be happy here. Like, it means more to me about like living longer and being healthier and being stronger than like the way that I may look to other people, which is probably just a perception of myself anyway.
yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And at the end of the day, like, who cares really if you have gained or lost weight? Like, they're not the one wearing your clothes. They're not the one sleeping in your bed. They're not the one, having sex with your partner. It's you. So don't give a shit about what those other people think. Like, everyone's going to have an opinion about you. And especially on social media, people are very quick to comment and throw shade at, oh, you gained too much, or you've lost too much, or you're too musty, you're not musty enough. And it's like, Jesus.
If you cared about all those little comments, like, you drive yourself crazy. Like, I've got those comments since I was like 16 years old. So like, I know now it's just like some keyboard warrior sitting in their basement, like, just throwing shade. Who cares?
Literally. And especially on TikTok, I'm like, what is going on? It's like, what is this?
It's awful. Yeah, I don't actually go on TikTok. So I'm like, this is just a waste of my time. It's just people like hating everywhere on TikTok.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane. So if you are someone who's trying or thinking of competing, or maybe they are a comp prep coach, but they're kind of thinking like, oh, I don't know if this is healthy, like, for this client, like, what are some red flags that you look out for when you're coaching people that want to compete? Like, something that would make you go, maybe you shouldn't actually get on stage.
So I always think about, like, a lot of people don't look at this, but like looking at where the health of that client is at the start of the prep. Because if that person, they don't have a cycle, they, are stressed out of their eyeballs, they don't know how to manage their stress, they're not sleeping well, like, any of these things that could possibly get worse during a deficit phase, like, those are things to really get on top of. Like, I don't start my girls in a prep unless all of these things are like, they know how to manage stress, they are sleeping well, they have a really good hormonal like panel or whatever I'm looking at in terms of them. And they have a really good mindset around it too. So mindset during prep is like the biggest thing. If this person, like, if you have a client coming to you and they're constantly like throwing excuses about like stuff they didn't do or not following their plan, or, they're inconsistent, I wouldn't ever start a client there, because it's just going to be a bad experience for them. Like, I use pre-prep or like 6 months prior to them starting like their cutting phase, like, as a period to really like weed out who's gonna manage this well or who's not gonna manage this well, because it has nothing to do with me. Like, I'm not afraid. I don't have an ego attached to people leaving me or anything. Like, I just want them to have a really good experience with this, and it is going to be the hardest thing that they ever do, and I know this from doing it personally. So like, wherever they start prep in terms of health, it's only going to probably deteriorate to a degree, because what we're doing with competition clients, like, it's not healthy. It's we're pushing them past the point where like their body fat levels are low, they're doing a lot of training, they're doing a lot of cardio, not a lot of food, they're not recovering. So like, that's not a healthy place to be. So we don't want to start someone in a compromised position, because they're going to end up more compromised by the end of it. And that's probably the biggest thing. And like, there's so many things, because I feel like a lot of people, like, they'll get a comp prep client, they'll see like the money in it, and they'll be like, shit, yeah, I'm gonna put this person in prep. But like, you're
a person to my team.
And you're only doing that person a disservice, and you're only doing yourself a disservice, because like, they're gonna end up pulling out, they're gonna end up in ill health, and that again could come back on you. Or like, it's just more the fact that they have a shit experience with it, and they probably never want to do it again, because you pushed them too far, or you pushed them to a place where like they were unhealthy to begin with, and now they're more unhealthy now. But also, like, I think being really open to your clients about the fact that it isn't a healthy thing to do. and that possibly they could lose their cycle. And that's like something that everyone's like, oh my God, it's so bad. But it is the reality of it. Like, we're pushing you to a place where your hormones are going to be dysregulated. And that's just the reality of it. So if you're not on board for that, and you put, like, if I have a client and they're like, I want to have a baby next year, I'm like, well, we're not competing this year. Like, because it could take 9, 12, 18 months to get a cycle back. Like, that's extremes, but we don't know how it's going to affect that person. And we don't know how long it's going to take for a recovery phase post-comp. Some people come back so quick because they're resilient. They have resilient bodies. Some people, like, they lose their cycle so quick, and it takes a long time to get it back. So all these things, like, I usually have a client with me and I'll do a cutting phase to trial how their body responds. If it works well and they're consistent and they're compliant, then I'll put them through prep. If they don't respond well, I don't let them compete. And they can go to another coach. I don't care. But as long as, like, I'm covered my bum, that I'm like, I've done the right thing as a comp prep coach. And maybe that person didn't want to compete at the start of it. Maybe they were just doing it for other reasons, So I'm very cautious with who I allow to compete with me, because it is something that a lot of coaches are pushing clients into, or just taking, like, new people that are new to the gym and putting them through a prep. And you're like, no, like, that, it shouldn't be this. Like, not everyone needs to compete, and not everyone should compete. It is like, if I was like the other day, tomorrow, be like, I'm going to be a world-class sprinter. Like, my body's not meant for it. I am not meant for that sport. Same thing with bodybuilding. There are people that are meant for it, and there are people who are not meant for it. And we're pushing too many people that are not meant for it into that space, and it's just hurting a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I love you're passionate about this as well. I can really see how passionate you are about it. Oh, it's amazing to see. And you're so right as well. And God, the amount of people that I know who started going to the gym and then all of a sudden, oh, I'm gonna do a show in like 12 weeks. Like, God, that was me.
Yeah, exactly.
So much, and then they destroy the relationship with food, and they have this coach who really pushed them into doing it and go on this crazy strict diet to lose all the weight that they've put on, and they get on stage and they don't have any muscle to show for it because they have only trained for 12 weeks. Like,
yes, exactly.
So good that there actually are coaches out there like yourself who are honest, and you don't care about the money, and you don't care about your ego, and you don't care about having 20 girls attached to your name when they get to show day. Because it's, at the end of the day, like, that's what's going to serve you, and that's what's going to serve your clients as well. Like, it's a win-win, really. Like, it might hurt at the time for you and for the client when it's like, no, you actually can't compete, you can't be my client if you want to do that. But in the long run, 100% is going to be so worth it.
And honestly, I've only ever had really good, like, feedback from me telling someone that they shouldn't compete, because they're like, or at least they've gone away. 6 months later, they come back and be like, thank you for telling me that, because I didn't actually compete. I was going through a breakup at the time, and I thought this was going to solve my problems. And I was like, I know, I was here.
I've been there.
Yeah, exactly. I've been that. That's been me. So.
Yeah, but that's the best way to be, though, I think. Like, when you have had the experiences yourself, because then it's like, no, I know exactly what's going on through your mind right now. Like, I know the reasons why you want to do this. You might think it's because of this, but it's actually because of that. And that's the power of being a good coach, like being able to see what your clients are not seeing, like seeing their blind spots. Because like you said, it can take 6 months, and then they're like, oh, now I get it. But they might not be ready to hear it straight away.
Yeah. And I think, like, one thing is, like, I got questioned the other day about my prices, and I was like, for a moment, I was like, oh, should I be triggered about this? But then I was like, what you're paying for in terms of my coaching is like 15 years of, like, mistakes that I have made that you do not ever have to make. And, like, the fact that I can see exactly what you're doing before you even do it, or, like, the repercussions of that. Like, I know so much, and I've worked with so many people. So I'm like, that's why my prices are there where they are. Like, and that's, like, it's the reason, like, you're not paying for that coach's, like, time. Essentially, you're paying for their experience. And that
yes, that is so important to remember. I love that so much, because it's so fucking true. Like, those years before you became a coach, they still matter. Like, that's still mistakes that you made and stuff that you learned, and people that we also worked with before we became coaches. Like, we learned stuff from them too, even though we weren't necessarily studying at the time. That is so true. So what is the plan now moving forward then?
in life.
Coaching, life, training.
So I will be, in terms of like bodybuilding, I'll be competing start of next year. So essentially this is the longest build phase that I've done actually properly, which sounds awful considering how many times I've actually competed. But like in my off seasons, I think a lot of people would resonate to this. Like I didn't necessarily ever have to grow. So I didn't put 100% into my growth phase because I was good for such a long time. Like I didn't need to bring up any certain area, but now I have to grow into this category. I have to bring up my legs quite a bit, which is really exciting. So I have a lot of tension with my training at the moment. I'll have essentially like 12 months between shows. Yeah, more 18 months, which will be really good.
Wow.
So I'll compete at the start of next year, and I'll start my deficit phase in November. So it's a long cutting phase.
Over Christmas?
Over Christmas. I know a lot of people will be like, this shit, but I'm like, I don't actually do a lot for Christmas because I've been bodybuilding for such a long time. I have like one day with my family that we spend time doing stuff, and then we go on holiday. And when we're on holiday, we're on anyway. Like we eat well, we have really like we love training. So like these things, like I could go overseas and nothing would change in terms of eating and training. It's just my lifestyle. And then like business wise, like look, I think sometimes we get really caught up with like 5-year goals and where we want to be, and it's all really aggressive. Since having Luna, I've realized that time doesn't exist, and like all I want to do with work is just do what we're doing now well and continue to serve our clients in the best way possible. So that is my business plan. I want to do a few more workshops. I'm doing the retreat in July. And I'm doing a workshop with them, I think next month or the month after. I'm doing a few more little like lectures and things like that for other companies, which is really cool. So like this year I wanted to really get into the space of doing like workshops and speaking and stuff like that. So I'm doing it.
Yay! Love that. Yeah, I think that it sounds like you have a very exciting year in front of you. And I'm excited to see what category you're actually going to compete in now. Like,
so it's called wellness. And wellness doesn't sound like that great, but it is. Like, so wellness in WBFF is different to wellness.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like big bomb, skinny.
Wellness in WBFF is really like quite like curvy and not very lean and things like that. But like wellness in IFBB is like you're shredded, you have more of a bikini upper body, so quite a small upper body, and really big legs. So it's like more like just a heavy lower body type situation. So I'm really keen for it.
Wow, very exciting. Well, I can't wait to see you up on stage. And obviously I'll see you in July as well. I'm very excited. But Emily, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me for an hour about everything that's going on in your life and giving such amazing advice. I'm sure that a lot of you guys will get a lot out of it, and especially the people who are thinking of competing or maybe are in comp prep or looking for a coach. Like, I think this will really, really be a good episode for all of them. For the people, I'm sure people are going to want to reach out to you. So we'll link your Instagram in the show notes. But are you taking on clients? Like, where should people go if they want to reach you?
Yeah, head to my website. I personally am not taking on any clients at the moment, but I do have 2 amazing coaches that have positions available, and we all collaborate on our clients anyway. So, if you do want to come on our team, there is space, definitely.
Beautiful. Amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. And as always, please make sure you do take a screenshot, put it on your stories on Instagram, and tag myself, tag Emily, tag Women's Fitness Academy. We love to connect with you guys and get an actual face to who is listening, who's watching, not just a random number, we want to see who you actually are. So guys, thank you so much. And Emily, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.